go ahead and get started.
Good.
Terrific. Thank you. Well, again, welcome to the TaxExact webinar. We thank you for joining us today. If you are joining us, more than likely you received some information from us asking if you use a reconciliation spreadsheet. We have received feedback from some of our existing clients that what the tool that we have built at TaxExact is real familiar. It's like your tax reconciliation spreadsheet on steroid with, of course, some type of workflow built into it. So we're looking forward to sharing this with you today. Basically, TaxExact, for all intents and purposes, is a solution that was developed by a tax accountant for tax accountants. Our founder found himself in a situation where they had a bottleneck at the review level, and he needed to upskill his preparers and get them involved in more critical thinking to get answers to questions earlier in the process rather than always coming up to the final reviewer. He introduced TaxExact 9 years ago. The first 7 years, it was in a spreadsheet, an Excel file, and then he developed it into a software. And then in the inaugural year was just last year that they brought it to market. So TaxExact, being an independent verification, is a 1040 review tool that is being used in the industry. We have also received some accolades from an organization, BDO, and some of you that might be on the call today are from that organization as well. BDO has identified that we are the only ones in the industry, in the marketplace, in the profession that is attacking this review at the 1040. Our development roadmap does include that we will get involved in other types of returns, business corp, et cetera. But for this season alone, we will be focusing in on the 1040. And what we'd like to do today is show you TaxExact, but then also get you thinking about another alternative. This year, we have also been asked by some of our clients to just take over the review altogether of the 1040. Will you just outsource it for us? So this year, we have also launched another product called Verify, powered by TaxExact. And if you are interested in outsourcing your 1040 review to us all together, that's something that we can discuss as well. I'm going to turn it over to Guillermo, and Guillermo is one of our directors. He's the director of software value optimization. He is also a CPA, and he has been in the profession for many years as it relates to technology. Guillermo was a part of CCH Wolters Kluwer, and prior to that, he was in Thomson Reuters. Our solution is completely agnostic, but you have the background and the knowledge and experience of the like of those that have been in the profession for many years. So I'm going to turn it over to Guillermo.
Very good, Julie. Thanks so much for the introduction. So let's go ahead and get started. So first off, before I even jump into the actual application, I just want to preface by saying that this is a solution that has minimal impact in your environment, in that there's nothing that you need to install, there's nothing that you need to configure implementation-wise as well. So just keep that in mind so that if you see that this is a benefit to you, don't think that it's too late to put this into your practice for this upcoming filing season. So the first thing I'm going to do here is log into the software. And what you're going to notice is that as I'm logging in, I'm getting prompted to choose a team. And just to quickly explain what this is scalability built into the software that will allow your firms, or your firm, I should say, to scale this out to suit your needs. So if you're in a multiple office environment, potentially you can use this to silo out the different locations, or if you want to parse out your book of business by the respective partners, this also gives you that capability. So this is just a function that gives you an ability to scale out the way you can use the software and how you can segregate your book of business. So I'm going to go ahead and join the Coolest CPA and Advisors team. So as Julie mentioned, at its core, this is a tool that you're using to improve the quality control process, to improve the confidence that you're going to have in what goes out to your clients, right? The end product. But there's also more than that. So this is a tool that I consider to be multifaceted in that it gives you workflow capabilities, it will give you collaboration capabilities that you will see here momentarily, in addition to allowing you to independently verify the quality, the control of the returns that your staff is preparing. And that's whether you're doing the prep work internally or whether you're yourself outsourcing the preparation work to another firm. So the first thing you're looking at is the landing page, which is a macro representation of your book of business. So this is part of where you start to see the workflow aspect of TaxExact, where immediately when you log in, you're presented to this panoramic picture of your entire book of business for that respective team that you just logged into. So I can see that for 2021, I don't have any projects yet assigned to me. 0% have been started, 6 are in progress that are not in that stage of the process. So I can see sort of the workflow of the jobs that are existing in my book of business. And then if I were interested in narrowing the focus, so this is more panoramic, more macro. If I want to look at a micro representation of my work, then I can come into this project listing screen where it will allow you to hone in more specifically on your work or the work of others in your team, and more specifically allowing you to see not just the current year, but also historical information should you ever need to go back a year or just simply massage the data to get to the relevant information that you're wanting to hone in on. Now, in terms of projects, I want to just take a quick moment here to explain this. With TaxExact, you are able to create 3 types of projects. So a project in our system can imply that it's a return, an amendment, or a projection. So you can very well use TaxExact for its main core purpose, but it also allows you to use it for projections. And I'll spend a little time just discussing the benefits of the projection function inherently built into the system versus what you would be used to using, let's say, if you were using the projector capabilities of your respective tax compliance applications. So just understand that the software is driven by projects and nothing else, meaning you can have 1,000 clients in here and only create 400 projects. So the actual pricing model behind the system is not predicated by the number of clients you have in the system or the amount of staff members that you have using it. It's driven by the projects that you're creating in the software. And we can get into a little more of that later on. So I'm going to start off by activating an existing project, Joseph Smith 2020 project. It's in progress. So what I normally like to do is take a project like this one and deconstruct it. So what you're immediately seeing is the delta of TaxExact, this summary page. So I land immediately on the summary page once I activate a project. And the summary page, as the name implies, is where you're going to go to do that review process, meaning to do the cursory review, to do the exception review, to prove out the output of what you have in your return. Because once this project gets created and the data is already in the project, you're potentially going to have this on one screen. You're going to have either the first page of the 1040 coupled with the second page available to you on another monitor. And all you're doing at this point is tracing that the numbers are matching. So keeping in mind that you're building independently a truncated expectation of that return in TaxExact, which allows you to prove the actual output, not the data that's in the actual return itself. So this summary page provides you many benefits, right? One of it, of course, is the ability to prove out the return all the way down to the refund or the balance due. So not only are you proving income items, which is what most spreadsheets will limit you to, right? Most spreadsheets that I've seen, reconciliation spreadsheets, don't go as far as calculating tax liabilities and things of that nature. That's too cumbersome. So we are actually taking it that step, right? We take that step, that further step in proving out not just income items, but we're proving out the actual refund or balance due. And this page, as you can see here, will give you analytics where you can actually match the trends, the variances from year to year, so that when you're providing your clients with the story behind the return, this could be the tool that you're actually utilizing to provide your clients with all this information. So rather than using the tax return, which is very convoluted, not layman, you can use this tool to meet up with your clients virtually like I'm doing now, or whether they come into your office, but you're using this to communicate the story behind the return. And along that line of thought, you see here variances. I can actually change this so that if you use the projection function of the software, you're able to change the display of the analytics, where I can now compare the current output of that year against what would have been projected, so that if the projection is way off from the actual output of what transpired in the final return, you can use this now to further explain why this is different from what would have been projected. Maybe the client sold off some equity, some assets beyond the limit that they may have disclosed to you, and that's causing them now to have a liability. But if you have a disgruntled client that's now complaining that you indicated that they were getting a refund, when in fact it's not the case, this might allow you to, really explain the story behind why that's the case. This screen is also printable so that you can actually collate this along with the deliverable that goes to your client. So this is another benefit, so that you can actually incorporate this into your delivery process. You can also memorialize it this way and have it be part of your documentation that you store, so that if you ever have to go back to a prior year return, this would be the proof that the actual return itself was reviewed and it matched against what was in the return itself. So these are just touch points that I want to make on the actual summary page, but along the lines of the summary page, what you also have is the collaboration aspect of TaxExact, right? I mentioned workflow. Now let's look at the collaboration aspect of this. Many times, in actual practice, you're walking up to your supervisor, to the manager, asking questions, or as a reviewer, if I identify a problem with the work that the preparer has done, I'm sending the file back to that person, or I'm putting a sticky note or emailing them. Well, we designed this so that it's interactive, where you're streamlining the communication between the staff that's doing the preparation and the person who's doing the review. But you have this function that would allow you to notify someone of a comment. So like if I identify that the preparer omitted a wash sale amount. So as I'm doing the review, I identify that my capital gains amount here is different from what's on the return. And I identify that the reason that's triggering a difference is because they omitted that number from the tax software. So if I want to create a comment, I can easily come in here, create a comment, put my comment in here, address the section of the return that this is relevant to, and then select the individual that I want to specifically address so that they get this notification immediately and I get a response. So when I send this comment out, what happens is, let's say in this case, I already have one established. When Julie gets this, it's more informational. I know she knows about wash sales. I know that she knows the significance that it has to be captured, but maybe she just needs to be reminded to do it. So I just created a notification so that when she gets it, all she would need to do is click on the actual link that's on the email, or if she goes back into the actual project, and it takes her directly to the section that she needs to be mindful of. And at any point, when she's on that notification, she can respond to me so that we can clear out this point. So she can say, sorry, it won't happen again. Yeah, it was something I overlooked, but I expect her to acknowledge that she won't do it again. So this is where you can enhance your collaboration, leave notes that can be stored as part of the project so that next year I also have a point of reference should I want that in the actual project itself. So you can choose to keep these, you can choose to keep them in the project so that they become part of the history of the actual project.
Something I'd like you all to consider and to keep in mind is TaxExact is very nimble, and where you plug it in within your firm is completely up to you. We have all different kinds of firms that are using TaxExact, solo practitioners, all the way up to larger firms. And you think about it, the solo practitioner, they don't have anyone that's reviewing their own work, and they would really like to have validation of another review. It's working at that level. It also works really well in a leverage model. So say you have junior accountants, tax preparers, and maybe a level one. This is a tool that will also help upskill your your preparers into level one reviewers sooner. It's a great learning tool. It is a tool that is also very beneficial as far as the collaboration that you can, that Guillermo just demonstrated to you. That really helps your staff to know that you're connected, to see, where you're making comments without having to recreate the wheel every single year. So I'd like you to be thinking about your own processes. And as Guillermo had mentioned at the beginning of the call, we're completely agnostic. So it does not matter what type of software you are using. We are completely agnostic, and it depends on your processes where you'd like to plug this in. Many firms plug it in very early, and they're using it for the junior accountants to fill out the independent expectation in TaxExact and make the comparison against the tax software, so that by the time it gets to the final review or the reviewer, what they're receiving is this summary page here, where you can see everything, all those green check marks that have already been checked. All the work has been verified. And if there's not a green check mark there, then you can look in the activity in the comments and understand and identify what the error, what the reason for that discrepancy might be. So it really keeps your process moving along, but also building up the knowledge and the strength and the confidence that the review is accurate and correct.
Absolutely, good point. And along the lines of these projects, as I mentioned before, once I create this expectation, the return has been reviewed. If I want to turn now this project and leverage from it and generate a projection that I now need to start working for this client, I can very well just go in here, duplicate the project and indicate that it's now a projection, so that I can come in here very quickly, generate a duplicate project. But in essence, I'm just leveraging from an existing one that was a return and turning now a new one out of that, that's a projection. So I can start to do my projections, annualize my income items for this particular client. And if I do projections year after year, I can now switch this, as I showed before, where now instead of having a year, this is a projection project, and I can swap this to be the prior year projection if I were interested in comparing the projections of 2 years for this particular client. So now I see the 2021 projection versus the 2020 projection. So very flexible in how you can utilize the system. So now what I want to do is go back to my original project, my return, and talk about how do you build this, right? So we've been looking at the delta of this, right? Once everything is in and you're now just reconciling the return. So let's say, how do you get to this point? And that's the part where you build the actual project. So this is designed to be extremely intuitive, where there's no training per se that you get to learn how to use this. It's really an orientation. This is designed so that you can basically pick it up and run with it. And as you can see here, as I move out of the summary page and go into income, that's the second worksheet. I have all my input sections for all income items. So you'll see general, Schedule C, Schedule D, K1s, Schedule E, etc. And this is very intuitive. It follows the same concept and the flow as you would be used to with your tax software. But what makes it a unique experience is that it's not a spreadsheet. You don't have to maintain it. You don't have to train people how to use it. And this system also behaves very similar to your tax compliance software, where when you roll a project forward from year to year, it actually builds a shell, so that if last year the project had a W-2 from LVR and a 1099 from Prudential and a Ameritrade, when I roll this project into 2021, it's going to open up with this already there, the schema of the project, and all I would have to do is identify the little elements of financial data that would need to be entered in the software. But even when you're doing this for the very first time, I just want to showcase this concept. When you're creating a new source of income into the software, it's a minimal footprint. So let's look at a W-2, for instance. If all of you take a moment and just to make it easy for you, I'm going to put a W-2 on screen just to make you visualize this for a moment. Not that you may even need to see this. I'm sure you know this cold, but there's a lot of data on a W-2, right? There's tax ID numbers, mailing addresses, etc. You have Social Security tax withheld, Medicare tax withheld, informational boxes that are just that, informational. But a lot of times, your preparers are dumping those informational amounts into the software. They're inputting data that's required for e-filing, etc. But when it comes to the expectation that you create with TaxExact, you'll see that you're not required to key in any of that data. It's minimal, a minimal footprint. So when you look at, I'll just open up the one I already have here, you'll see that I only had to enter taxable income, federal tax withheld, state tax withheld, and the retirement contribution. And that's it. That's all I had to key in this particular section of the software to be able to trace back at the summary level the amount of salaries and wages that would then allow me to reconcile against what's in the return. So that's how you're building the project, the independent expectation. And this is very intuitive. You have everything followed logically, adjustments, your deductions, credits, taxes. And if you're thinking, well, what about Social Security tax and Medicare tax? That's normally a very important number to have. Well, we're calculating those numbers. So don't get me wrong. We're just making it so that there's minimal information that you need to key in. And we're formulaically calculating the information that we have a way of doing that behind the scenes so that you're not required to key in that data, but still you're able to prove out that section of the return. So when I'm looking at taxable income, when I'm looking at taxes before credits, if I have a discrepancy here, I can then go back to analyze, what are we calculating versus what's in the return and catch any discrepancies that may exist at that level there. And that is true throughout the entire software. In fact, I'll give you a quick story. I've been able to use this to prove concepts to a lot of our customers that were evaluating it. And we always find issues, hate to say it. And when I say issues, I mean errors in the preparation of the returns and things that don't get caught at the review level of the firms, wash sales amounts, data that gets entered in the tax returns incorrectly because I may be looking at this screen and entering net short-term capital gain, and I don't realize that I'm in the long term when I'm doing that. So that's going to have an impact on many things, net investment income tax, on the tax rate, et cetera. So when you're creating these expectations inside of TaxExact, this is really going to elevate the quality control process. Not only that, you're going to be able to, as Julie mentioned and explained, the new trend that we're seeing more and more in many firms, where you're using the leverage model to shift the review so that, let's say, if Julie prepares a return that's considered a level 2 at my firm, and I'm a preparer, let's say a senior level type preparer, the partner has a high level of confidence that I'm able to review the work that Julie does, so that if I'm reviewing Julie's return, I can actually be the one who does the final review of that return and move it to the next stage of the process. But if it's a level 3, maybe a level 4, I can still review the return, but then pass it to the partner who then, does the cursory review, and I can just say, no found, no errors, no omissions, and I think I'm spelling this wrong, and high level, I'm just using this as an example. So I'm letting this partner know that even though this is a level 4, or maybe a return level that he or she may want to give it that extra eyeball, I'm letting them know I found no issues. I was able to independently reconcile the return that Julie did, so I can still approve this, and it will have one level of approval on the bottom left corner, and then the partner gets it, but you're shifting that review time significantly down and opening up your bandwidth as a partner so that you have more time to do the advisory work that generates the higher revenue. And I just want to take a quick pause here. Julie, any questions or anything that's come in? Okay, question, can you see the detailed Schedule E, please? Sure, let me go ahead and show that real quickly. And Julie, are you back?
Yes, I am. Sorry
Okay.
about that. It appears I
Yeah,
had
no
an
worries.
internet issue. Thank you for jumping back in for me. That question must have come directly to you. I do not see the question, Guillermo. So thank you for addressing it.
Yes, yeah. It's question was they wanted to see the detail of Schedule E. So I hope that answered your question, Jeffrey. And anyone else, any other questions that you may have that you would want me to address right now?
So as you can see, Guillermo has shared with you our software as it is in the state today. I also had mentioned that because the OCR piece is not in there where the data is being pulled in, and let me tell you, there's a huge controversy over this because many people don't want OCR pulled in, and that's fine. Maybe we'll do a little bit of both because they want their preparers understanding the tax code a little bit better. However, those firms that do want the OCR to optical character recognition to pull the data in, there are the ones that have been asking us to just outsource the returns altogether. And that is when we launched Verified, powered by TaxExact. So we're using our software and actually doing the project for you, and we'll be returning the project in the software that you're seeing today. You'll actually get access to the software with the information, and it'll be very usable for you. Next year, you roll forward, maybe you'll decide that you'll want to do your own reviews. Maybe you'll want to outsource again to us. That'll be completely up to you. So if you're interested in Verified and or learning a little bit more about TaxExact, please let us know. You can reach out to me. I'm Julie at TaxExact.com. And we can have a one-on-one meeting and talk a little bit about your processes, where you'd want to plug this in. And another thing I want to mention, obviously, it's a tenuous time of the year, right? We're all getting ready for tax season. One of the things that will be sure delightful with TaxExact is that there is no implementation involved. TaxExact is completely browser-based. So the only type of onboarding that we do is a simple orientation in which we will take you and your staff, whoever it pertains to, and we'll go through an orientation similar to what we're doing today, actually showing the software. In addition, we have full support where you can reach out and you have a squad of people helping you to work through any issues that you might have. And so if you're interested in talking more about TaxExact and or Verified, powered by TaxExact, don't hesitate to reach out. I'm Julie at TaxExact.com, and I would love to have an opportunity to talk with you. Let's look and see if there's any more questions before we depart. I don't see any. Thank you all so much for joining. We do appreciate it. Have yourself a great day. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.